welcome back to season 2 of Through the Looking Glass. My name is Lavanya, and I started this podcast to talk about the unique millennial struggles ambitious South Asians face every day. My goal is to empower listeners, even in the smallest way possible, and improve your well being. If you found my podcast and enjoying it, please take a minute to follow and rate the show. It really would make a huge difference for a brand new show and lets me know I'm doing a good job. If you want to know more about me, behind the scenes, and podcast clips, follow me on Instagram. So, today's episode is all about how to conquer self love in 5 simple steps. First, let's clear something up. Self care is not self love. Self care is behaviors you can do to take care of your physical health, which is part of self love, but not the same thing as loving yourself. Think of it like the tip of the iceberg. If you've seen those pictures, it implies self-care is the surface level stuff and self-love is what's on the inside, underneath the facade. If you're confused, don't worry. You've come to the right place. Even if you're not confused and want to pick up some new tips and learn about my suggestions to love yourself to the fullest, this episode is for you. One of my favorite definitions of self-love is from the book Good Vibes, Good Life by Vex King. Self-love is the balance between accepting yourself as you are. One of my favorite definitions of self-love is from the book Good Vibes, Good Life by Vex King. Self-love is the balance between accepting yourself as you are while knowing you deserve better and working towards it. Today's podcast is all about loving yourself to the level of self-obsession, but in a good way, of course. So, the first step of self-love is positive self-talk. The way you speak to yourself matters so much. Did you know the average American spends close to 50 hours per week on their own? That's a lot of time to be left to your own thoughts. Our mind is so powerful. Maintaining your mind palace to be a safe, happy, and loving place is the key to self-love. What you think and feel affect your energy and drives your behavior. All of the current trendy topics on higher vibration and high-value women is just repackaged self-love and positive self-talk at its core. The buzzwords might change every generation, but let's keep it simple today. Be honest with yourself. Are you being mean to yourself? Do you think you can't do anything right? Do you say things like, I'm stupid? I'm not smart enough to do this. It's time to move past self-deprecation. It's not funny and it's holding you back in life. It's okay to have flaws, but there's no reason to constantly highlight it. When I was a teenager and in my early 20s, I categorized myself as impatient, hot-headed. It was an internal and external narrative that I had about myself. I used to think I was the one being unreasonable or in the wrong for having a strong opinion and blaming myself for things or situations. Maybe this is a narrative perpetuated to South Asian women who don't comply to society's expectation to be malleable to other people's needs and comforts. I'm not sure when I internalized this narrative, but my point is I would speak negatively about myself and focus on flaws. The truth is, I'm actually not either of those things, impatient, hot-headed, or at least not anymore if I ever was in the first place. I just knew what I liked, okay? Basically, I was being told to take up less space by the people around me with their criticism. I was not internally strong back then, so I let myself be drowned by the negative speech. Instead, I could have told myself I was decisive, efficient, can lead, take charge, basically all the qualities of a leader, and often highlighted as great qualities in men. My point still is, what you say to yourself matters. I wish I knew this when I was younger. And that's why I'm here to share my experiences to help you reach your fullest potential. The energy you consume affects you, so you have to filter out the external negative talk and take the lead to speak kindly to yourself. If you don't think and say positive things about yourself, it opens up space for other people to enter your bubble and lower your vibration. You are in control of your mental space and energy. I have a challenge for you. I want you to set a timer for 2 minutes. Grab a piece of paper and write about your favorite personal qualities, your strengths, what you love about yourself. It can be anything. You just can't stop until the timer counts down. Trust me, it is harder than it sounds like. When was the last time you praised yourself? You might be surprised how it raises your vibration looking at this list and taking in your own power. When you don't recognize your own abilities, you are giving up a piece of yourself. Positive self talk is about being intentionally kind, open, and evolving in life. Keep that list somewhere where you can read it regularly, like by the dresser or maybe your working space. Maybe you can even tuck it into your journal or diary if you're feeling shy. And whenever you feel down on yourself, I want you to go read that wonderful list about yourself. I promise it will help you tune into loving yourself. Level two of self love is acceptance. One of the biggest obstacles to loving yourself is when you hold on to the feeling that something is wrong with you. The moment you fully embrace yourself, you become free to heal and grow. Acceptance doesn't mean that you can't change or take actions to better yourself. It's not about settling, which I feel like is a common misconception. It's about being patient with yourself, giving yourself the time to grow, and allowing yourself to be at peace with who you are. Maybe even a small thing like height tends to have a huge impact on people, especially men. I'm a shorty, and even as a girl in high school, I did want to be taller, but it wasn't something that bothered me later on when I realized it's really not a consequential trait. So, what if you're short? It doesn't change you as a person. I think men struggle with wanting to be taller more often. While it's true, being 6 foot does help you appear commanding, especially in the leadership arena, it's not an end all if your goal is to be a strong presence. Think about the tiny grandmas who yield power in a room. It's not because they are tall. Tapping into your power is a whole video of its own, but start with accepting yourself for who you are. Staying in your insecurity energy about inconsequential things doesn't exude inner love. If you don't love and accept yourself, how can you expect other people to? Personally, I choose acceptance over hating myself any day. I see it as liberating. When you are rigidly attached to a result or outcome, even a person, it's that much harder to pivot or move on. Clinging on to the past and holding on to what should be happening is not serving you. You never know what the next chapter is and what's going to come into your life if you just let go of those past failings, right? I know that's easy to say, but every time I've let the past take away my peace, it's made me lower my vibration. You receive what you think you deserve. So when you start being content with where you are in life and tune into your peaceful self, then that's when you attract abundance. There's a major link between self acceptance and practicing gratitude. There are great gratitude journals out there to purchase, like the 5 minute journal. However, if that's something that you can't afford to spend money on, you can do it on a piece of paper or your computer every day. Just write down 3 things that you're grateful for, an affirmation for the day in the mornings, and 3 amazing things that happen to you at night. This practice allows yourself to acknowledge your efforts. Think about your strengths, reflect on your success. You can even turn a bad day into acknowledging the blessings that you do have through this practice. Even if food, a warm bed, and coffee is all you can put on your gratitude list, think of all the people who don't have that. Appreciating the small things that we take for granted can really help you ground your energy and manage your emotions. A lack of emotional balance leads to elevated anxiety, stress, or anger, so self acceptance will help regulate your psychological and emotional well being, which ultimately improves your capacity for happiness. An added suggestion if you're trying to do self acceptance affirmations, add these to your list. I am at peace with where I am right now. I accept myself unconditionally. A bonus tip, I have affirmations as my laptop background. I am far too shy to talk to myself, but seeing those affirmations daily does help me. The next chapter of self love that I want to dive into is forgiveness. You might be wondering, why is forgiveness important for self love? Keep listening to find out. As humans, we seek forgiveness in others quite often. Think about how many times you say sorry in a day. I have a challenge for you. Keep a tally of how many times you said sorry for just a day. Was any of those sorries to yourself? I bet most of us would tally 0. We often neglect the thought of forgiving ourselves. It sounds simple, but in practice, most of us fail ourselves in this area, which is why I wanted to talk about it in today's episode. Everyone makes mistakes. when it comes to ourselves. Most people struggle with forgiveness and feel guilt, shame, or self doubt. Self forgiveness is a powerful tool that can help you achieve inner balance and peace. I would recommend you start by Googling the 4 R's of self forgiveness, but I'm going to share my take on it with you today. The first step is taking responsibility for your actions. At the end of the day, you are in control of your life and actions. Maybe you need to work on self compassion and stop blaming others for your misfortunes. Do you have a deep sense of regret? Are you mentally stuck on something that happened to you or you did? If you answered yes, then you need to work on changing your mindset. Everyone is worthy of love and forgiveness. Everyone makes mistakes, right? So you're not alone in your struggles. If you believe you're the one who needs to apologize, I would make the effort to try. I would suggest writing yourself a letter expressing your guilt or shame. Just let it out on paper. I promise you'll feel better and mentally lighter. Just remember you're doing this for your inner peace, and it's not about a certain reaction or outcome. The next step is letting go. It is a tough step because it does require self awareness and mindfulness. It takes practice, but what matters is that you are trying to learn and allowing yourself to grow. There's a fear of the unknown that most of us feel, but relinquishing that control can be a factor to really allowing yourself to grow. Life is meant to teach us things, so this is part of the process to reach self actualization. I think of self forgiveness as a crucial component of self love, but it's also one of the hardest things that you can do for yourself. So it's okay if you need help. If you're struggling despite efforts on your own and feeling emotionally unstable, I really would recommend talking to a therapist. Although self forgiveness was not an area that I particularly struggled with, personally, therapy really helped me understand my own anxiety, overthinking, and how my childhood and upbringing has shaped me as a person. It's incredibly valuable to get that one on one feedback to understand your triggers and learn how to overcome your inner wounds. I do acknowledge therapy is expensive, so I do have a couple of alternate suggestions. You can read self-help books or listen to podcasts like this one. Let me know any self-improvement topics that you want me to discuss. One book recommendation is called How to Be Your Own Therapist. And of course, there's so many other great ones out there too. I would also suggest going on Pinterest and just search self-forgiveness, shadow work prompts, and just schedule 30 minutes on your calendar to work on them. Just make it part of your fun Sunday night routine or something. Journaling is a great way to reflect on yourself and become aware of your actions. It's not about justifying or dismissing others, it's about acknowledging the impact of certain actions or people have on you. Some people struggle with writing, so alternatively, you can record yourself talking about these prompts. The iPhone voice memo app is a great feature for this. It sounds awkward, but you will get used to it, and you can even listen back later to reflect and better understand yourself on the long run. Make yourself a fun drink and motivate yourself if that's what you need. You got this. Chapter 4 of self love is knowing your value system and setting life goals. People who love themselves don't choose to self sabotage and live an unfulfilled life. I saw this quote recently. We live 2 lives. The second one begins when we realize we only have one. That was a powerful reminder. It starts with recognizing your own worth. If you're at a stage in life where you don't know what your core and personal values are, do this. Especially if you're in your younger 20s, that is an understandable place to be in, but this is the perfect time to start. Defining your core and personal values is a great starting point to live an intentional life. Personally, I would start with these reflection questions. What is most important to you in your work? What is most important to you in relationships? What is most important to you in your social life? What do you want from your life as a whole? Number 2, make a list of 10 things that make you angry. These are your non-negotiables or deal breakers. It's emotion-based values that will help you set boundaries. Third, I would evaluate what's important in your life. What must you have in your life to experience fulfillment? And this is a list that will help you find your purpose and make you feel alive. The fourth list is look at people who you admire and see what common values that they all have and what stands out to you. These are your goal qualities that you can bring into your own life. There's so many great frameworks out there that you can apply. I saw Time Court mention doing a SWOT analysis on yourself. As a fellow business girly, I love that idea. Another great framework that you can Google and map out your strengths and weaknesses. Make this a fun project. Map your core value system. When you have that clarity, it will help you make decisions so much easier. Now that you know what you value, you can start thinking about how to attain your dream life. No matter what stage you are in your life, setting goals is important. You need long term goals and short term goals. Personally, I don't believe in 5-year plans. Life changes too much to have a plan that far into the future. I would focus more on the shorter term goals. Maybe you have things like getting a degree, buying a house, starting a business. Then break it down into smaller pieces for your shorter term goals. Then break it down into smaller pieces. Your short term goals are going to be the ones that you can do in a quarter. If you take the one about starting a business, you can designate one area that you want to focus on, whether it's marketing, product design, or website, and make that your short term goal for the quarter. Then I would reevaluate and restructure your goals every quarter. Don't just do New Year's resolution or something trendy and ignore it for the rest of the year. Remember to set achievable and realistic goals. This is where you need to discipline yourself. I would say discipline is the highest form of self love. If you don't check yourself, no one will care enough to do it for you. Other people can encourage you, check in on you. They might even be your parent, but it is never enough to drive the results. If you don't honor your abilities and talents, you are doing a disservice to yourself. If you've made it this far into my podcast, I know you really want to improve yourself. That's the essence of self love, anyways. So I am proud of you. You have the ability to follow your desires and goals. You're on the path to self fulfillment. There's hard work behind self love, it is earned, not wished. The final and highest level of self love is always choosing yourself. I know some people will call that selfish, but I respectfully disagree. Another way of putting it is having boundaries. This means standing up for yourself and saying no when necessary. Honoring your own needs is not selfish, it's quite the opposite. You doing the things you need to be happy and healthy is not only for your own greater good, but for everyone in your life. You can't fill other people's cup if your cup is empty. And this applies to you even if you're a parent. I don't have kids yet, but I know it's important to take care of your mental, physical, and spiritual health. Besides, I would want to be a good role model for my future kids. As an elder daughter, I was always told to be a role model for my sister, so it was something that was ingrained in me early on. Within the South Asian community, the concept of choosing yourself is almost foreign when you're a girl. More reason why it's important to talk about, right? It's normalized for girls to be the one who give up their needs to please everyone else in the family. I am here to remind my brown girls that it is okay to choose yourself. I know we will disappoint some aunties and uncles, but prioritize yourself. If your boundaries are scaring away people or making them angry, it is okay. Let them go, let them be. They are not your people in the first place. Anything that doesn't serve your higher purpose and misaligns with your beliefs, say no to it. Sometimes self love is about doing the things that you don't want in the present for a greater reward in the future. So, whenever I'm stuck on making decisions, I think about what will future love do? I guess it's one long term goal I can endorse. I will always act in the best interest of my ideal self. If there's one hard truth you can take away from this podcast, please don't abandon yourself to please others. I always say it's not about competing with others, it's about competing with yourself. My goal is to always better myself so I can close the gap between my current and future self. What that looks like can change day to day. One day, it might look like honoring my need to rest without any guilt. This is when listening to your body is key. On other days, it might look like doing everything in my time blocks task list and a couple from the next day, even. Choosing yourself is self respect, so you should never apologize for it, in my opinion. The amount of love you give yourself really matters. Everything I've shared today, it feels like I'm just scratching the surface, but I wanted to give a wide range of self love practice. I know I didn't talk much about self care. To be honest, I think social media is saturated with self care tips, so I don't feel the need to regurgitate that. Self care is not self love until you can learn to love yourself. So today's podcast is about the inner work. I hope you found this helpful. I would love to hear what resonated, what you disagreed with, any topics you want me to dive deep on. I would love to hear from my listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in, and happy Valentine's Day, by the way. This podcast is meant to come out on the 14th. Whether you are in partnership or singlehood, I hope you take the time today to appreciate yourself. Thank you so much for listening again.